God, but it has to be a God who throws dice. The God that Einstein said, I can't believe in a God who throws dice. In fact, the God who throws dice is the only conceivable God, a God who started the universe up with a toss of the dice. But if you believe current cosmology, the universe started out in absolute chaos. So there's no memory of a creator in the universe today. There could have been a creator, but there's no memory of him left because the universe started with maximum chaos. And so this is what you end up with when you try to think of all of the possibilities. Now, when you talk about the more abstract type of theological reasoning, of course, most people don't follow that, and most of the new atheism is focused on what most people worship, not what a few theologians say. But that's still, you could think of what you were talking about, and you could still put it on a scientific perspective. These people who are doing this should also be thinking scientifically, because is there going to be any effect of that? Is these gods that you might imagine, the kinds of metaphysical entities that you might imagine, are they going to have any effect at all on the rest of us? If they don't, then what's the point of even thinking about them? Because they're not going to have any effect on us. If they have an effect on us, then that should be something that science has something to say about, whether it's observable or not. And so that's what it all comes down to. It comes down to whether or not humans will ever be able to participate in any kind of interaction with these imagined entities. Right now, there's absolutely no reason to even think of them, because there's no evidence for them. There's no way that they could interact with humans that anyone knows of. If there was, the evidence would be there. This is the basic point. That's all.
Okay, we have time for questions now, so just raise your hand, feel free.
Why don't you join me up here, Steve?
Who do you include in that group that you refer to as the premise keepers?
Of what?
Who do you include in that group of theologians that you refer to as the premise keepers?
The premise keepers, yeah. Well, they're not all theologians. Some of them are scientists. Like Kenneth Miller, for example, the very well-known biologist who is the best spokesman we have out there for evolution, is a very devout Catholic, and he has his own theological ideas about how the universe could have come about in a way consistent with evolution, or how God could still play a role in evolution. Then there's John Polkinghorne, who was a physicist, in fact, a particle physicist like I was, who became a Anglican priest. He's written any number of little tiny books. I mean, he writes small books that quick to read about religion and science, and he's been one of the people who's been proposing that particular approach. And well, there's a number of others that I talk about in the Quantum Gods. So ask whoever you want.
Atheism is just a negative way of saying you're a materialist, physicalist, naturalist. And what's opposing you is some form of idealism. And so I happen to be an atheist, materialist, physicalist, naturalist. And the only idealism that's around against me, against my logic, is theism, monotheism. And so what I'm asking you here is, it seems to me like there's a practical compatibility between atheism, materialism, and these other kind of gods we talk about deist God. In Hinduism and Buddhism, there's pantheism. I don't really, see any real practical incompatibility between being an atheist and being a pantheist and being a deist. If all the God believers in the world tomorrow woke up and decided they were pantheists or deists, then that would end the debate as far as I'm concerned. The God that interferes, the God that answers prayers, the God that strikes people in the head with lightning bolts for being bad, that's the nonsense part of the God question. So, you don't really spend a lot of time arguing against deism and pantheism.
Pantheism is just a definition. You just say, you're just defining God as the universe. I mean, so why do you need to, why not just call it the universe? So why do you need to call it God? It doesn't seem anything. You have a comment? You feel free to add your comments. I mean, you're here for, you took the trouble to be here, and I'm happy to have you join in and talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're submitting that pantheism and deism and materialism come to the same thing.
No. I said there's a practical compatibility.
Practical compatibility. Yeah. And from a theist standpoint, for which the element of personal response is crucial. That is, for a theist, there's a discernment that ultimate reality, or the ultimate, is something with which one can have a personal relation. Then I think, and I'll take that position for my answer to your question. I agree that the dividing line that's most meaningful is between the theist's investment in a personal relation and everybody else's sort of neutralizing of that. Even if they're still talking about a God in the picture, maybe it's a removed God like in deism, maybe it's a diffused God like in pantheism, maybe it's just out-and-out naturalism. I agree with you. But I would not agree with the implication that the personal God has to be one who hits people with lightning bolts, ad hoc.
No, I wasn't saying.
Okay, somebody else? Okay.
I got a question. You said back in your first lecture that Jesus supported slavery and something else to do with women.
Yeah.
What was that to do
Well,
with?
basically, the subjugation of women. I can't give you the chapter and verse right now, but if you want to find a good reference, this book Godless by Dan Barker. Now, when you buy it, make sure you don't buy the Godless, the book by the same title by Ann Coulter. That's a different book. Godless by Dan Barker. He has a nice section in there about the New Testament and some of the things that Jesus had done. For example, there's a story where Jesus is having his feet anointed by his disciples, and they say, well, maybe this is very expensive ointment we have here. Maybe it would be better if we spent the money on the poor. And Jesus answers, well, the poor will always be with us. I won't be. So, you'll find stuff like that all over the Bible. Right? Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on. I see it seems to me kind of a jump to go from saying that, okay, there's no evidence for this kind of more traditional or fundamentalist religion, and to go all the way to atheism. Because in my mind, it seems kind of unscientific to be like atheist, like to say, making a sweeping generalization, almost to say kind of what we know now is what there is and there isn't anything else. I think like if you're really deep into science, like sure, you'd be like probably agnostic or kind of maybe not resolute, but it seems like it takes almost an assumption to say like atheism, like completely without.
Yeah, that's a good point. That needs explanation. That needs explanation because first of all, I'm making a scientific statement, okay? And so any scientific statement is always subject to change new data comes along. New data comes along, shows God exists, we have to believe. If there's good experiments that prove that, we have to change that picture. So we're talking about how the situation is now. But